Good evening. This is Melanie McGackin from the Family Support Center of New Jersey. Welcome to tonight's webinar titled Family Dynamics and Behaviors. This evening's presentation is being hosted by Transition Matters, a program through the Family Support Center of New Jersey and presented by Matt Linder from Brett Denovi & Associates, LLC. The Transition Matters website assists families and professionals in identifying resources to successfully transition your child or student with special needs to adulthood. Resources such as webinars, in-person workshops, statewide and regional contact information, both can be made available and found on the website. Before we begin, let's take a moment to go over how you can participate during this evening's web event. You each have your own control panel in the upper right corner of your screen that looks similar to the one here. Use the orange arrow to open or hide your control panel. To listen to the webinar, you have two audio options to choose from: mic and speakers and telephone. If you can't hear well using your computer speakers, you can elect to use your telephone to listen to this evening's webinar. In order to maintain the best sound quality possible, all but the presenters will be muted throughout the webinar. If you have any questions or comments, we encourage you to ask. You can submit them using the questions panel. All questions will be collected and answered at the end of the webinar as long as time allows. At this time, I would like to welcome Matt Linder, the Executive Clinical Director at Brett Denovi & Associates. Matt, welcome. And Matt, I'm going to be changing control of the screen over to you now.
Okay. Can you see my screen then?
We can. Thanks, Matt.
Sure. Welcome tonight, everybody. Thanks for joining. Tonight's topic is going to focus strictly a lot on different things that we don't see in the schools, a lot of the dynamics between family and really what effect our behavior has on the behavior of individuals with some problem behavior. I am a board-certified behavior analyst. That's what that BCBA means, if you see it next to people's names. Always want to look for that if you are getting behavioral services from somebody, or BCABA. On the agenda for tonight, we're going to just do like a brief overview of problem behavior and what that means. People think different things when they hear problem behavior. I'll give you some examples and some other terms that you might hear referred to as. The big question, why does problem behavior happen? I could spend days on this, but I'll give you again another brief overview on behavioral function and you know what function do these behaviors serve, and what are the individuals engaging in problem behavior getting out of it. The responses by other family members, this is going to be a big one. You've probably seen that, you know, behavior changes around different family members, and those family members change their behavior around others as well. So really why that happens and what we can do about it. A couple of tips and hints, and I'll be throwing in some different stories and anecdotes throughout to try to illustrate some of these points as well. How you change the rules. This is really big. Behavior analysis is referred to as stimulus control, and it's really just a set of rules by which we operate in a certain environment. And I'll go into that and really the method for changing the rules and then in turn changing behavior. And I'll talk about some siblings as well. I am a sibling of an individual, now a almost 23-year-old adult with autism. And I had my fair share of experience with problem behavior in the homes I was growing up, as well as professionally. So I'll be sharing some stories from my youth, and you know, maybe some not so from my youth. I still experience the problem behavior every once in a while. But it is it's an interesting piece to be able to draw on and give a perspective from a sibling of somebody with autism and a sibling of somebody who had some, moderate problem behavior. Moving forward, problem behavior. You can hear a lot of different terms for this. Probably the most common is negative behaviors. We try to stay away from the word negative because of what it can mean in our science of behavior analysis. Negative also means taking something away as opposed to something that is unpleasant. Challenging behavior, that's pretty much interchangeable with problem behavior. I don't mind that term so much. Problem has less syllables than challenging for me, so I usually use problem behavior. Next one is maladaptive. I don't necessarily agree with the terminology for maladaptive behavior because, if you break it down, it means mal meaning bad or not, and adaptive meaning that it's not adaptive to the situation, which in a lot of cases it is adaptive. The individuals are getting something out of the problem behavior, which is why it continues. Also aberrant. It can take many different forms. Problem behavior can be anything. We have our own problem behavior day to day. Things that we try to, keep bottled up sometimes. Sometimes we're more successful than others. And, it might look like just having a short fuse sometimes with somebody that you have day-to-day interactions with. Maybe you cut them short or you interrupt, and that could be our problem behavior. It's something that's not real socially acceptable, so it's looked upon in a not so positive fashion. But the ones that we're going to be talking about today are going to be the problem behaviors of individuals more than likely with some type of disability, varying ranges. It happens with typically developing kids and adults as well, though. Aggression is a real common one. Might be referred to as assault or striking somebody. A lot of times hitting, kicking, biting, headbutting, these types of different things fall into aggression. Disruptive behavior, or anybody from the classrooms in here will see, you don't have to necessarily be from a classroom, but swiping things off a desk, throwing things across a room, taking things off the walls and throwing them. Defiance, also referred to a lot of times as non-compliance. Refusing to do things, doing the opposite of what they're told. Inappropriate touching, that can, just be, if you walked up to somebody and just touched their face when you greeted them, it's not something that's really socially acceptable. It's not appropriate for the situation. Inappropriate touching can fall into some groping as well, especially when we get into teenage years and adult years, we see more and more of that. Noises, many types of loud noises, humming, whistling, could be yelling, singing at a loud volume, approximations of noises that vehicles or other things in the environment can make. Inappropriate sexual behavior, something that, again, as we get into the teenage years and adulthood, see more and more of inappropriate sexual behavior, masturbation in inappropriate places, things like that we, again, not accepted by society. That's really how we define problem behavior, is something that's not accepted by society in day-to-day living. You all know that certain behaviors, we don't necessarily exhibit in public. You might sing in the shower in the car, but it doesn't mean you're going to do it in the office. Okay, our behavior is individually or specific to the environment, and it changes as we go from environment to environment. I'm going to talk about that when we talk about changing the rules a little bit. Appropriate plans for these behaviors are determined not by necessarily what the behavior looks like or the form of the behavior, also referred to as topography, but the function. Okay, what function does the behavior serve for that individual engaged in So I'm going to go through the different functions. These are the most commonly accepted functions of problem behavior, or any behavior, but specifically we're going to be talking a lot about problem behavior tonight. Attention. Everybody has some sort of need for attention, whether you need help with something or you like the stimulation of interaction with another person. But a lot of times we have varying levels of need for attention. You can probably identify some people in your lives that need a little bit more attention than others. You can think about peers or family members or whomever, but definitely varying levels of attention. And we'll see that across individuals with problem behavior as well. There's varying levels of attention, or need for attention, excuse me. So really it could fall into any type of category when you're talking about attention. Vocal attention, just talking to somebody's physical attention, touching them. Proximity, moving closer. That can be a form of attention. Body orientation, eye contact. And a big one, change in facial expression. Now, the change in facial expression is an interesting one. If you've ever felt like somebody's engaging in problem behavior just to get under your skin, and you make that facial expression and they know they've gotten to you, a lot of times if you have a spouse, you'll know exactly what facial expression means you've gotten to them. I know that with my wife, it's very similar to that. You know, I know exactly the facial expression when I have, you know, maybe said a little bit more than I should have in that situation, and I've gotten under her skin, and it's not always the type of attention I'm looking for. But attention is a big one. Fall into a category. A lot of times you'll hear attention-seeking behaviors. You know, it might be, but we'll talk about exactly how to determine function moving forward as well. Escape, avoidance, and delay. All right, this is what's going to be just so for attention. That's going to be an example of positive reinforcement when you're adding something to a situation. Escape, avoidance, and delay are negative reinforcement, meaning that you're removing something unpleasant or you're avoiding it altogether. I'm sure that most people, unless you're just a worldly saint of a person, and I know they exist, there's maybe a few people on a short list that you prefer not to be around, and you work hard to stay away from them. You might walk into maybe a public setting like a supermarket or something, and you see one of those people, and you decide you're going to a different supermarket now, and you walk right out the doors. You know, it's incredibly, feels really, really good to get away from things that we do not like. It can be anything unpleasant. The most common thing that we see with a lot of individuals with problem behavior is escape from demands. What a surprise, they don't like being told what to do. But again, varying levels of need for escape from demands, varying levels of tolerance to be given demands, and the length of demands and the number of demands. Could be anything unpleasant, a person in the environment, a sound. They could be trying to get away from attention, okay, away from social interaction. You know, there's some really interesting research about that, and it's become pretty widely accepted that, you know, just because you're close to me and you're talking to me and I engage in problem behavior and you go away, that could be incredibly reinforcing to me. Anytime I use the word reinforcement tonight, you can interchangeably use it with reward. Okay, reinforcement just means anything that's going to strengthen or maintain behavior. It usually follows the behavior. Next one is access to a tangible item. This one is huge, especially in the growing technology market of today. Access to something physical. You know, you can't really touch escape from something or touch attention. You can touch all these items. Okay. Access to something physical, an item, a toy, iPad, music, TV, food, computer. I swear the iPads and the computer, video games, and food are like the leading candidates for this. The need that some kids have for these, and you know, a lot of people will use the word obsession with these items. is something that, they'll do anything that they possibly can do to get to. And then if they can't have access, even typically developing kids will act like it is the end of the world because they can't have access to it right now. A lot of our individuals who engage in problem behavior, they're just going to show you a little bit differently that, they want that item and it's the end of the world for them. And the last function is automatic. Okay, and there's two sides of the automatic function, a positive and a negative side. First one, that positive side, meaning that you're accessing or feeling something pleasant in a sensory fashion. So anytime if you like to jump on a trampoline, or you like to roll around, or you like to go sledding, or any of those types of things, could be some type of pleasant sensory feeling. A lot of us, when there's not a lot of stimulation going on in the environment, we'll find something to fidget with, or you might be tapping your foot right now, or twirling your hair, or picking at your fingernails. We all have, most people, I'll say most people because anytime I say all, set myself up to fail, but most people have some type of small, like fidgety behavior like that they'll engage in frequently. For me right now, I'm rolling a small spring that fell out of a pen back and forth in my fingers. But these are things that society accepts. They're okay. Nobody's going to go, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're twirling your hair. How could you in this place right now? Those are things that are accepted by society. But when we get somebody, spinning around with their arms fully out in the middle of a public place, it's somehow not okay. Or somebody flapping their hands in front of their face, or moving their arms forwards or backwards in a quick succession. Those are, again, not socially acceptable. That's why they sometimes fall into the category of problem behavior. Other things that you can see fall into this category as well are some type of skin picking, things like that. It could be something that's pleasant. On the flip side, though, it could be removing some type of unpleasant feeling. Okay, so that's that removal of pain. You see the slash in the slide there. That's the other side of this one, is the removal of pain, itching, or discomfort, an internal thing. This is all stuff, when it's called automatic, that just means you don't need anybody else for it. You only need yourself. Okay? A lot of us will do this when we, maybe have a headache and you don't have access to aspirin, or you don't want to take something like that. You might start rubbing on your sinuses or your temples or your forehead to try to, relieve some of that pain, to attenuate it to some extent. Almost everybody, unless you have complete mastery, engage in some type of self-injurious behavior in the form of, removing skin cells from their body when they itch. You have something that's itchy on your body and you scratch it to relieve that itching. If it's a mosquito bite or a horsefly or something like that, then you're going to itch it, and for 3 seconds it's going to feel great, and then after that it's going to be terrible again, or worse. But we still keep itching a lot of the times, even though it's just a slight relief from that discomfort feeling of itching. So all of these different things can be the function of a behavior. And when we look at behaviors, we usually try to break them up into definitions that are within the same look of the behavior. So a lot of times hitting, kicking, and biting will go into the same category of aggression. And then we look to determine the function of that specific behavior. If there's more than one group of problem behaviors or class of problem behaviors, we're going to evaluate function on an individual basis for each one of those behaviors. Now, why does problem behavior continue? That's the big question. We've gone over the different functions here, but then why does it continue to persist here? When an episode of problem behavior occurs, and this is where we're gearing up for some of the family side of things, family members, you want to stop it as soon as possible. Not only could it be unpleasant for you, let's say if it is in the form of some type of aggression and somebody in your family is hitting you or something similar, It could be very unpleasant that way, but we don't like to see any type of behavior that's going to cause harm to a loved one either. One of the most difficult, behaviors that I've found to deal with is self-injurious behavior, maybe in the form of, somebody hitting themselves or hitting their head on a hard surface. It is, one of the worst things to experience as a loved one, and we want it to stop more than anything else in the world. So whatever we do next, the function of that is going to be to escape or stop that problem behavior from continuing. Now, the need of the child for one function is then reinforced by our need or desire to escape the problem behavior. Let's say I just get home from work and I have a daughter who is engaging in some type of problem behavior. Let's say she's hitting the wall with a golf club. And, she's just looking for attention because she hasn't seen me all day. And instantly I say, hey, stop hitting the wall with a golf club. And she stops immediately. Okay? I want that to stop, even if I know attention maintains it. Again, I want that to stop more than anything else in the world, and I give right into it because it stops it. So a lot of times that type of thing functions as a Band-Aid. It stops it. It's like itching that mosquito bite. It stops it right now, but it's going to come back later when she needs that attention again. Then we start to learn, how we can avoid problem behavior by changing the way we act. We start changing everything we do to try to avoid these episodes of problem behavior. What can we do? We're walking on eggshells. We're trying to do everything we possibly can to accommodate for this individual so that they don't engage in problem behavior and we can avoid it altogether. There's certain things in the world that I try to avoid as well. Traffic is one of them. If you're in New Jersey right now, you know that that's really hard to do, is avoid traffic altogether. And, I use the GPS every day, even if I know where I'm going, because it'll show me where the traffic is, and then I can avoid it if I need to. A lot of times when a new plan, when I say plan, I'm talking about a behavior plan is put in place, the motivation for all family members is not necessarily the same. Meaning that, some family members might be looking long-term. They might have a little bit more patience for a plan like that, when others, they just can't deal with it right now because of other things that are going on in life. And anytime a plan is put into place in the home, you want to make sure that it accommodates for the life factor. And what I mean by that is that life happens. And you don't want to put a plan in place that has to be run perfectly all the time to be able to work. And there's different plans out there, and there's different techniques that you can use that allow for some failures here and there, and you can still be successful in the long term. So overall, why does it continue? Because we have a need for some type of escape from these problem behaviors, and a lot of times giving into it stops it in the short term. And we think, oh, this stops that. I know what to do here. He's hitting his head on the floor. If I go over there and I give him a hug, for 2 minutes, and I give him some love and lots of attention, he'll stop. So the way that different family members respond to problem behavior is really important. This is when we start talking a little bit about extended family and, how their motivation could be different from other people. So our motivation really, how valuable things are to us, it depends on prior events in our day. So when I say valuable, a lot of it, can be how much of something you have makes something more valuable. So let's just use our number one reinforcer as a whole, money. If you have so much money, money's not nearly as valuable. Getting more money is not as valuable to you as somebody who doesn't have a lot of money. Okay? Same thing's true with attention or escape from demands or tangible items. Okay? So, there's a lot of different setting events that can change our motivation. So stress levels are a big one. Stress levels can fluctuate. They can ebb and flow throughout the course of a year or a week or a day. And have you ever had a situation where it's just like, it's just not a good time for me, just give me a minute? Being able to say that's half the battle, so that you don't engage in problem behavior. Being tired, exhaustion. A lot of times behavior plans take effort to run. You have to think about what you're doing. You have to deal with some of the resistance on the other end of the behavior plan to be able to get through it and do things the right way sometimes. And deprivation of attention is a huge one. This is one of the biggest things that I think causes effects across settings. So when I'll give you a good example. I was recently working in a school, and there was a little girl, and she, at the beginning and end of the day, would refuse to get off the bus and to refuse to get on the bus. Loved coming to school, loved her parents, loved her mom, loved her dad. She still does, but in this case, what was happening is, they're not going to carry her off the bus, so they keep on trying to get people on the bus to coax her off. And I'd say like somewhere around 80%, 75 to 80% of the people in the developmental disabilities field are females. And this little girl had females telling her what to do all the time, lots of female attention. So what would eventually happen is the principal would come and say, hey, come on, let's get off the bus here, or come on, it's time to get on the bus. And she would stand up off the ground and go get on the bus or off the bus. After talking with her parents, I found out that her parents, her father did a lot of trucking, so he might only see her 1 or 2 hours a day. And that's like 7 days a week, because they were doing all sorts of stuff. They had extra responsibilities within this company, and that made so much sense to me that she's deprived of that male attention at home, and it makes it more valuable when she goes to another setting and she does what she needs to get it. It's a perfect example of how that can carry over across settings sometimes. If you have a child who engages in problem behavior for escape from demands, and they're coming home from school, and you want to run home programming with them right away, they get through the door at 3 o'clock, and 3:15 you have a behavior therapist sitting there with discrete trial materials or academics or anything at home. It's like, hey, I just had a whole day full of school with all these demands, and I come home and immediately I have more. It is a distinct possibility that, if it is valuable for that individual to get out of this stuff, they're going to engage in problem behavior to delay the onset of those demands. A lot of people, when they get home from work, don't feel like getting right to work on something else when they get home. They want just a little bit of downtime. All these different things can affect our need for reinforcement. That's why we see, the ups and the downs of things. Some days are good days, some days are bad days. And a lot of that stuff can be setting events that, decides, how's this day going to go. For the most part, most people want to have positive interactions with other family members. You might not love spending tons of time with certain family members, but you probably prefer that those interactions were positive than not so than unpleasant. So, we're going to do a lot of the times whatever we can to make those interactions positive. And when you're looking at it from the perspective of maybe an extended family member, like a grandmother or an aunt or an uncle, who doesn't maybe see one of their niece, nephew, or grandson that often, when they do see them, they want it to be positive. And with problem behavior, that's not always the case. So a lot of the times, and you may have seen this, they might add some more preferred items in there to offset a meltdown. Maybe there's cookies, or there's ice cream, or there's things that they don't typically get at home with mom and dad, they get with grandma, or they get with aunt and uncles. It's, it's common across all kids, not just kids with problem behavior. But a lot of times we see an exaggeration of it when their kids have problem behavior. And they might try to add it in when, you know, a kid's having a meltdown or a problem behavior episode. I've seen it several times where maybe somebody's having a tantrum, and an extended family member goes up and goes, "Oh, hey, do you want a lollipop? I've got this lollipop for you. You can have this lollipop. Just take this lollipop. All right? If you like candy, just take the lollipop and you'll be happy." So what happens then is, you know, for whatever function they're engaging in it for, something new can be bred as well, where it's, oh, when I'm around grandma, I just have to throw a little fit, and she's going to offer me candy and goodies and sweets. That pairing's pretty strong. You know, that's how we learn. We learn what follows what else. We learn that if we work, we get paid. We learn that if we turn on the TV, there's going to be entertainment there for us sometimes. So, you know, a lot of times coaxing with toys, electronic devices, cookies, those are a couple of examples. Could be anything preferred for the individual, and that just gets paired with that problem behavior. And then what you'll eventually see is they'll just start providing them with huge, way over the top stuff to try to avoid all problem behavior. Okay, it's like, oh, they walk in the door, oh, would you like candy? Would you like sweets? Would you like this stuff right off the bat? So if I give you all this stuff, you're not going to have any problems. It's a great technique to use before you pair it with the problem behavior. You know, it's just like, oh, hey, this person means good things. They're going to be associated positively. It's a good technique. It's called positive pairing. You'll see a lot of therapists use it in the homes. A lot of their first sessions will be preferred activities. There'll be maybe access to preferred items. And it can be really effective. It's kind of like a first impression for new people. But we don't want to get in the habit of it, and that's what that means, to go over to grandma's house or to the aunt's house or anything like that, where that's all it is. And the kid ends up getting spoiled. And then when there's not access to those things, let's say that there's a surprise visit and they're not prepared, and they don't get these things that they're always getting, it turns into a big issue, resulting in problem behavior. Sometimes they can be generalized to other settings and other family members, where it is, you know, oh, you know, Grandpa took me to Six Flags. I want you to take me to Six Flags too. Oh, that's something that just Grandpa does. Well, you know, I want to go to Six Flags, and I'm going to start to escalate in the problem behavior to get what I want here, because other family members have been giving it to me. It can cause some strife for other members of the family, even though that's not the intention. Even though that's absolutely not at all what the extended family members are trying to do, the parents especially, but it can absolutely happen, especially if those extended family members are coming over to the individual's house with the parents and bringing those items with them. Okay, then those items get paired with a new environment. And then the expectations can change, where they expect them on a more dense schedule. They expect them more frequently. So function-based responding just means that we're trying to use the function to our advantage. All right. So if a child is engaging in aggression for attention, we want to give them an avenue to attention where they don't have to engage in aggression, and that's called a functional equivalent or replacement behavior. And that's really, really important because, you know, if there's a need for it, we can't necessarily always change that need for attention, but we might be able to give them a more appropriate way to access it, asking for attention, saying, excuse me, different things like that can be really, really effective in just gaining access to attention appropriately before they have to yell and scream and throw things. That replacement behavior is the end goal. We want it to be, you know, more enticing and easier than the problem behavior. In the beginning, if you're going to start doing this and using function-based reinforcement, you want to make that reward or reinforcement really, really frequent. You want this person to think, the individual with the problem behavior to think, this is how I'm going to get what I want. This is easy. I get it a lot. I pretty much get it every time I ask for it. This is fantastic. And then you work slowly to be able to extend that and thin the schedule to make it less frequent. So it just becomes a little bit more habit, but the ease of it and the recent learning history of it makes it much more enticing than the problem behavior. And this depends a lot of the times on how long that problem behavior has been going on. If it's been going on for 10 or 14, 20 years, it's a lot harder to change, and it's going to take longer to change than if you use, or than if it's been going on for like 2 or 3 months. There's not really a formula to decide how long it's going to take, but it will take longer in that case. So changing the rules, I talked a little bit about stimulus control. Our behavior is under the control of our environment, essentially. You're going to act differently around family than you will around coworkers, than you will around friends, than you will when you're by yourself. Okay, that's your environment. Your environment decides how you're going to act. You know, you're not going to wear the same clothes lounging in your house that you're going to wear to work. Now, when you're looking at changing the rules of an environment, and there's already an established learning history, meaning that, you know, there's been some history of a problem behavior being reinforced or rewarded, it's easiest to do when you bring something new in, usually a person with limited or no learning history with that individual. The rules aren't established. You can start with a fresh set of rules for that individual, and it's a lot easier to change the person with the problem behavior than with a new person than it is with somebody that already exists, that already has a learning history with the individual. I'll give you an example. Growing up, my sister, and I'm sure some of you, if you're family members, have seen this. My sister loved it when new people and therapists and like had a new TSS or somebody come out to the house. They weren't there very often. You know, there was a new person, and she would do anything for this person, anything this person asked. If I ask you to do one thing, I either have you know, a knuckle sandwich coming, or it is, you know, just a flat out no. So, you know, there's a lot of different things that you can expect when somebody new comes in. There's a new learning history. There's a new set of rules. That's why, you know, you might say, oh, you know, my kid loves his therapist. They come in and things like that, because that fresh learning history. It's because they came in with a fresh set of rules, and that's what their behavior is under the control of in the presence of that person. So when you put a new behavior plan into place, when I say behavior plan, I just mean a consistent set of interactions and responses to problem behavior and adaptive behavior. It writes a new set of rules with that person. Now, when you want to transfer those rules over to yourself, a lot of times this can be done by overlapping, being in their presence when they're running their session. This is why it's so important for family members and parents to be involved with home sessions that are going on that use applied behavior analysis. Now, you know, a lot of times it's nice to just have a little bit of break when the therapist or the you know, associate, we call them clinical associates, come over. It's great to get a little bit of a break, and I think that's fantastic, and every single family member deserves that. But it's also really, really important to overlap and see what they're doing and see why it's working, and understand that it's a lot of times it's the set of responses and the consistent interactions that they have with maybe your son or your daughter or your family member that is making them successful, versus just they're a super great guy or a super fun lady that's working with them. And overlapping with them and then starting to alternate interactions can really help to foster behavior change in their absence. It's a complex process. A lot of times it takes a while, so don't get discouraged if you don't see effects immediately. I'm going to touch on progress here. Progress is sometimes difficult to see and feel. Okay, we don't necessarily always know exactly how much progress is being made in a certain circumstance if we can't objectively observe that. When things are starting to escalate, a lot of times there's an escalation of the severe problem behavior It might start with whining and then yelling, and then maybe they're starting to knock things over, and then they start with a full-blown disruptive or destructive behavior where they're trying to punch holes in the wall. We see that escalation. We know where things are going a lot of the times. As soon as you see some of those, what we like to call precursors or antecedents to problem behavior, we start to get that feeling. And everybody that's experienced this knows exactly what that feeling feels like. And it's maybe a bit anxious, and you want to avoid what's coming next. And you'll do anything to have it not happen. Now, it's a really terrible feeling to have, but we start to pair that with those precursors. Once a plan's put in place and those precursors occur, we might feel those things, even if it doesn't escalate to the severe problem behavior. And I'll give you an example. Had a certain individual, it was probably 3 to 4 aggressive episodes a day with the parents, specifically the mother. And we put a plan in place, and the plan was showing good effects. And I'll show you an example of data from this case. Full consent, it's de-identified data, so don't worry about confidentiality. So, the precursors were still occurring, and she just called it, he was getting mad. She said, he's getting mad. And, he's still getting mad, though. That's what she kept saying to me. He's still getting mad, though. And I really had to say, but is he hitting you? And, is he hitting you as much? And she goes, I don't know. And I said, and that's when we go over the data. And it's really, really good to have objective data, especially when it's, to some extent, the parents can take that data. Data are really, really, really helpful. Sometimes even just like a tally for each behavioral episode or each aggressive episode on the calendar. If there's a pretty observable start and end to each episode, just keep it a marker or a pen near a calendar and just put a tally up there. And then weekly you can tally them up, and you can graph them, or the therapist can graph them. That's what we do in a lot of my cases, because the goal is change in behavior when I'm not there. Okay? A lot of times it's easy for behavior change to happen when I am there, but when I'm not there is the most important time, because that's going to be the vast majority of time. So here's an example of some data. This is the de-identified data I was telling you about, and this is aggressive episodes per week. I didn't have the parents start taking this from the very, very beginning, because there's a lot that goes into a behavior plan, and it already takes so much effort that I'm not going to have them take data. Right from the beginning, we added this in. And you can see that downward trend over those first couple weeks, about 20 weeks, until we really got down low. And this is the aggressive episodes per week. It was around the tune of 20 to 18 to 20 when we started. And we introduced the plan. And then once they were running the plan effectively and the integrity of the plan was really good, we had them start taking data as well. I have data from when I would visit, just so that they could see the effects of this. And you look towards the end here, towards the right side of your screen on the bottom there, and we had a lot of 0 days. Most recently was 4 0 weeks, 4 0 weeks in a row. That's a whole month with no problem, no aggressive episodes for this kid, who used to go after his mom 18 to 20 times a week. I'm going to talk briefly about siblings here, and then I will answer some of the questions that have been coming out throughout the presentation. As a current sibling of somebody who still has some problem behavior, not nearly as severe as it was when she was younger and I was growing up, but anytime you're looking at what's going on, you're looking at function of the behavior, look at the interactions with the siblings to coordinate with the function. Looking back on my interactions with my sister, I can see clear as day what the function of the behavior was. I just had no idea what function of behavior was at that point. And it would be a situation where I would be home and with my parents, and this really started to get worse once I went away to college. And think about all of the time that she got to spend with my parents strictly attending just to her, and I wasn't even there. There's a setting event. And then I come back from school to spend a holiday or a weekend or a summer at home, and I'd be maybe sitting upstairs talking to my parents, and she would come in and hit me. And you know, especially over the summers where I was living there for 2 or 3 months, I'd say, all right, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm just going to go downstairs. Okay? And she never followed me. Never, ever followed me. Not once. And I'm just thinking, you know, she's going to hit me. If I'm up here, if I'm down there, I don't get hit. I escape being hit by her. Now, to me right now, that's very clearly a situation where my parents' attention was divided away from her after she had undivided attention of theirs for so long. And I come back in the mix, and she tolerates it maybe for a little while, and then she's like, all right, you need to go. It's time for you to leave. I want this attention back on me now. And had I known anything about ABA, I would have done things very differently then. And it was one of those situations where it was just a lot easier for me to not be hit and not deal with it at that time than to actually probably tough it out, which is what I do now when this happens. Just tough it out, and it's essentially you can ask me to leave, or you can ask to talk to my parents without me, but you hitting me is going to get you nothing at this point. Just some quick tips, things that my parents did really, really well when I was growing up. I always like to translate these. Provide equal attention to the sibling without the problem behavior. Usually it's so easy to provide so much attention to the individual with the problem behavior. We do so much. We have all these related services coming into the home, or you're going to different doctor's appointments and things like that. And I know it's never the intention of any parent to ignore their other kids, but really make that big effort. I know it's tough. I understand that, but do everything you can to give them equal attention. My parents did a phenomenal job, and I'm sure it almost killed them, of making sure that I was able to play sports and do all sorts of other things. When my sister was getting all this attention for the autism and the problem behavior that she had. Also, it's helpful to sometimes include the sibling in the programming if they want to be. I had be careful though, because it's not always appropriate. And I had most recently with one of my clients, his 6-year-old brother came up to me when I was doing a skill acquisition program and said, hey, I want to run this program. And it was cute, and it was absolutely adorable that he wanted to be involved, and he wanted to work with his brother, who was 8 years older than him. But his brother's also got some pretty severe behavior, aggression specifically, and he never went after his younger brother. So I didn't really want to include him in the programming if it wasn't an issue from the beginning. Sometimes it can be helpful if that sibling really wants to be included. Sometimes they just like their time away from it. But it can be really useful, especially for behavior plans. Keep them updated on what's going on, what they can expect to see. I always like to have siblings present when I do trainings on behavior plans or safety procedures and things like that. I think it's really, really, really important stuff for them to be able to have access to. The last thing I'll say is have your own rewards and reinforcers. Little pleasures when you or someone in the family is successful responding to problem behavior appropriately. When you run the plan the right way or somebody else does, give each other praise, help each other out, do this. You might have ice cream, extra solitary time, sometimes time by yourself is what you're most deprived of, and just getting a little bit of that is so nice. Or maybe a preferred beverage if you have one. Anything special, but make sure to remember that we all need our rewards and reinforcers too. Also, help each other. It's nice to have an impartial third party that you can bounce things off of. Every once in a while, I get a text or an email from a family, and I'll say, "Hey, we did this in the behavior, or somebody in the family did this for the behavior plan. Is it right?" And I'll reference the plan, and I'll let them know exactly what happened. That way, it's not coming from maybe one spouse to the other, where you end up arguing about who did what wrong. You can just involve an impartial third party. Nice little moderator or mediator in that situation. All right, so feel free to ask. I think this is the time for questions. Mel, I think you may be logging some questions if people have them.
I have.
And, I'll do my best to answer.
Matt, thank you so much. I personally want to start by thanking you for definitely acknowledging the siblings within your presentation. So important and often forgot about, so thank you for that. And also thank you for reminding the families that, you know what, sometimes you have to step back and reward yourself. I think so often as family members, we are so focused on the individual who may be having a problem behavior that always gets pushed aside. So again, thank you.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Thanks. Matt, can you talk a little bit? We have actually a lot of really specific problem behavior questions coming in, so I'm trying to sort through some of those. I know quite often you'll have to observe or ask 100 other questions before you could really give some solid advice. I may actually throw a few of those in there just to see, again, not that you're going to give specific suggestions to any one family asking a question, but maybe just some general suggestions, if you could. The first question, though, I want to give is: Can you teach a replacement behavior for an inappropriate sensory-based behavior?
An inappropriate sensory-based behavior, absolutely. A lot of times with the sensory behaviors, are things that are maintained by automatic reinforcement or some type of feeling. Let's say it's hand flapping or something like that. I'll just use that as an example because it's a common one. A lot of times we'll try to just shape that to look a little bit different so it's not as stigmatizing in the environment, where instead of hand flapping right in front of their face, maybe I'll get them to do it around their waist or down at their sides so that it's not up at the eye level of everybody. When we look at people, we look usually at their eyes and their face first. If those hands are up there, it's the first thing that we're going to see, as opposed to them being down at their sides. Also, if there's some other type of sensory input that they're getting, maybe from touching their arms or pinching or something like that, there's different types of items. Occupational therapists are great with different types of sensory items. I'll usually talk to one if I need to replace some type of sensory behavior. Does that help? Hopefully.
Absolutely. Thank you. Matt, you talked a little bit about collecting data. As a BCBA, what kind of data do you like to see a family keep? What data would be most important for a family to collect for professional analysis?
Data that's going to be accurate. Okay, that's the most important thing with data, is that it is as accurate as possible. As you get into more specific and more precise types of data collection, inaccuracies usually are included as well. If I'm trying to take frequency or rate data on something that happens 100 times throughout the day, I guarantee I'm going to miss a handful, or I'm going to miscount, or I'm going to miscalculate. I usually like to break things up into behavioral episodes, or specifically a lot of times aggressive episodes, whatever the most important presenting behavior is, so that, a lot of times, families kind of know when it's done. All right, something has started, we're in a behavioral episode, and now it's finished. That's probably my favorite type of data that I have parents take. There's something called a BARS rating scale, B-A-R-S, as well. It's kind of some really informal, not real precise data, but it's easy to keep for families as well. Kind of like, how many behavioral episodes did we have this week, if I'm not approximate. A lot of times, formal data collection in the homes is difficult because, again, life happens. There's other kids, there's activities, there's things that need to be done around the house, and taking data 24/7 really isn't an option.
Absolutely. Matt, would you suggest different family members keeping data within the different environments that they're in? So let's say, the parents are at home keeping data, but if the child is going over to an aunt, uncle, a grandparent's house and the behavior is being exhibited there, should parents be, or should a caregiver be encouraging other family members to also keep basic data?
It depends on your relationship with those family members.
Okay. Good answer.
I think that in a perfect world, yes, But again, when I talk about different people having different motivations, you know, in a perfect world, it would be amazing to have data in different environments and to be able to evaluate it and look at it and say, is it happening more here or there? You know, and then, you know, being able to present that visually and say, look at these graphs. Look at how much more it's happening at your house than it is at mine. What's going on over there? What's different? And now let's look at what we can do to change it. That'd be amazing. A lot of times those other caregivers we're already asking them to do a lot to help us, and you know, as family members, and it's tough to ask them to do one more thing.
Of course, of course. Matt, do you have any tools or resources that you would suggest for caregivers to use to help educate other family members on the procedures that they're using within the home? Obviously, we know some of the procedures aren't natural, right? You know, not giving attention to a problem behavior when that's possible. I think it's probably instinctual for grandparents and, you know, again, other family members to sort of pay attention because they just want to see the behavior stopped often. Do you have any suggestions that parents could use within that environment? Any resources? Have you seen maybe families write letters? Have you seen anything that's been a more positive approach?
In order to,
I guess
is it to understand the procedures, or is it?
Yeah, I guess to understand why the family is running the procedures is how I'm reading.
Why the family is running the procedures?
Yeah.
You know, that type of stuff is really the reason why you know, training and follow-up by a behavior analyst is so important, is because we can take a lot of these procedures and translate them. I didn't throw a lot of jargon and technical terminology into this presentation because it just adds another level of explaining. It's really important to try to get that from an educated professional, because they're going to be able to tell you why maybe you would. Anybody who's heard of extinction is withholding reinforcement from a problem behavior or any behavior, and why you would use extinction one time and not another. There's side effects to extinction, and going into those is, you know, why behavior analysts have a rigorous process of education and testing to be able to be certified, and translating that to the parents and all caregivers is really important.
Great. And I think you shared before, really trying to get the whole family in, you know, involved in the process is so important. Matt, I'm going to give you one specific question if you're comfortable. If not, you know, by all means, we do understand. The question is, I have 2 children on the spectrum with aggressive behaviors. They set each other off all the time. I know we are supposed to ignore problem behaviors to make the extinct, or I guess to put on extinction, but they do not ignore each other, and the behaviors get worse and continue. Any advice in this situation? We have tried to give praise to the one who is behaving, if that happens, but it hasn't worked out so well.
I mean, at that point, I mean, you really have to look at function. The key for that is going to be functional behavior assessment. And if you don't have a behavior analyst handy, there's a tool. Can you still see my screen?
We can, yes.
Okay. So here's a tool. It's called the Functional Assessment Screening Tool, or the FAST. It is the most widely used indirect assessment tool for functional behavior assessment. That being said, it's not super accurate. Okay. You're going to be accurate with it about 56% of the time. But it's better than 0% of the time, or when you have 4 functions, you're about 25% of the time picking one. So you fill this out for each behavior, and down at the bottom here, where the scoring summary is, you go through the different numbers and you tally up the score for each one, and it's going to talk to you about, you know, what the function is going to be. Is it going to be social, attention, or preferred items? Is it going to be escape from tasks or activities? Is it going to be some type of automatic? Okay, so this is a nice little tool. It's a good interviewer tool. I would suggest everybody, if you have problems, especially with aggression and things like that, you can try. There's a new available resource. It's not the easiest thing to get through. It's called Perform Care. It's Medicaid funded, but it can help you get services in the home, and there's no co-pays. Really try to get a professional out there to look at the situation. I can't weigh on exactly what you should do without seeing the situation.
Perfect. Thanks again.
Sorry if that's kind of a semantic answer.
No. I think that is actually the perfect note to end on, Matt. And Matt, as always, it's a pleasure, and I thank you so much for sharing your expertise and experience with us this evening. And to everyone, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
I was going to say thank you very much. I've included my contact information here too. Email is definitely the best way to get a hold of me if you have a question about Perform Care and things like that. We can set you up with somebody to help walk you through the process. It is so important that you get good professional help in the homes to be able to head these behaviors off the right way. And doing it the right way is so important so that you have lasting change. It'll make your life easier. And I encourage you to reach out and put in that effort for the services. But thank you for being a wonderful audience. Definitely the quietest audience I've had.
Matt, thanks again. And to everyone in attendance, on behalf of myself, the Family Support Center in New Jersey, Matt Linder, and of course Brett Denovi and Associates, LLC, we thank you for joining us this evening. If you're interested in listening to this webinar again or any of our other archived sessions, please visit fscnj.org or transitionmattersnj.org. Matt, have a wonderful night, and everyone, please stay warm. Thank you.